Alright, I guess I gotta continue where I left off on that one. An example, safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits, etc. Travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurances. Let me read that again. Okay, so for Dickey versus Davis, no state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, nor waterways, transporting his vehicles and personal property for either recreation or business, but by being subject only to local regulation, i.e., safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits, etc. You have to be a safe driver if you want to enjoy the rights of a citizen. That's the way it is. If you don't observe the traffic laws, you're not gonna have the ability to drive for very long. You're gonna get arrested. You're gonna get put in jail. It has nothing to do with the driver's license being revoked. People get their driver's license revoked all the time, and they drive. It doesn't matter about that. So, just to reiterate, transporting his vehicles and personal property for either recreation or business. That means you can be going to your business. You can be going to work. You can be using stuff. You can be taking stuff to work. As long as you are not getting paid to be on the road at that specific junction in time, then you are not commercially driving. All right? I hope that's clear. Third time saying it. So, Chicago Coach Company versus City of Chicago. Traffic infractions are not a crime. People versus Battle. Persons faced with an unconstitutional licensing law which purports to require a license as a prerequisite to exercise of right may ignore the law and engage with impunity in exercise of such right. Definitely got to reread that one because I know there's a bunch of shills out there going, yeah, whatever. So let's do this again. Chicago Coach Company versus City of Chicago. Traffic infractions are not a crime. This is a Supreme Court, people. This is just not just for Chicago. This is a Supreme Court. So, traffic or infractions, not a crime. Let me repeat: a traffic infraction is not a crime. Hope it sank in for those of the harder heads. All right. So, persons faced with an unconstitutional licensing law which purports to require a license as a prerequisite to exercise of right may ignore the law and engage with impunity in exercise of such right. This is the Supreme Court telling you, do not obey anyone that tries to tell you that it is a law for an infraction to obey the infractions, or that you are not the infractions. That is a law to have a license in order to be on the road. If you have air in your lungs, you have the right to be on the road. They cannot take that away from you. There's nothing they can do. If you know your rights and you know the law, I guarantee you've heard it a million times, but it's never sunk in. Learn your rights. This is just one. How many times have you paid a speeding ticket when you gotten your license revoked or whatever? What have they done that you could have avoided by knowing this information? Know your rights. There's a lot more in there. There's a lot more out there. There's a lot more. But let's continue. All right, so we have Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham. U.S. Supreme Court says no license necessary to drive an automobile on public highways, streets. No license streets. No license is necessary. Copy and share freely. YHVH. Name 3. The word operator shall not include any person who solely transports his own property and who transports no persons or property for hire or compensation. So if you're not a taxi cab driver, you're not driving commercially. Or if you're not a moving business where you're moving someone's furniture or whatnot, you're not driving commercially. If you're not getting paid for the time that you're on that highway, you're not driving commercially. Bottom line. All right, Statutes at Large, California, Chapter 412. Highways are for the use of the traveling public, and all have the right to use them in a reasonable and proper manner. The use thereof is an inalienable right of every citizen. Escobedo versus State, 35. A right. A legal right, a constitutional right, means a right protected by the law, by the Constitution, but government does not create the idea of right or original rights. It just acknowledges them. That means you're born with these rights. You have the right to move freely. You have the right to own a gun. You have the right to own any gun you want. fully automatic, semi-automatic. You have the right to own a tank. You have the right to own a assault helicopter. All right, if you want it, you have those rights. They were given to us, or they were not given to us. We own them as people. When you were born with that right. If you want to believe that a government entity has the right to take them away from you, that's your folly. Okay. Bouvier's Law Dictionary. Those who have the right to do something cannot be licensed for what they already have right to do. Such as license would be meaningless. City of Chicago versus Collins. A license means leave to do a thing which licensor could prevent. So that means they're giving you permission, basically, to do something that otherwise they could prevent without giving you that license. All right. Blatz Brewing Company versus Collins. The object of a license is to confer a right or power which does not exist without it. Next. Payne versus Massey. The court makes it clear that a license relates to qualifications to engage in profession, business, trade, or calling. Thus, when merely traveling without compensation or profit outside of business enterprise or adventure with the corporate state, no license is required of the natural individual traveling for personal business or pleasure or transportation. Wingfield versus Fielder. If the state officials construe a vague statute unconstitutionally, the citizen may take them at their word and act on the assumption that the statute is void. With regard particularly to the U.S. Constitution, it is elementary that a right secured or protected by that document cannot be overthrown or impaired by state police authority. Donnelly versus Union Sewer Pipe Company. LaFerriere versus Grand Trunk R.R. Company. Providence Amusement Company. The right to travel, called the right of free ingress to other states and egress from them, is so fundamental that it appears in the Articles of Confederation, which governed our society before the Constitution. Means it's just always been there, man. We've never had that right taken from us until imagined now. A lot of people imagine that, you have to have a license to be on the road. No. They're lying to you. If they say that they require it, flip them off and go on your way. That's all you got to do. Paul versus Virginia. The right to travel freely from state to state is a right broadly assertable against private interferences as government action. As government action. Is governmental action. Like the right of association, it is a virtually unconditional personal right guaranteed by the Constitution to us all. So I'm going to reread that. The right to travel freely from state to state is a right broadly assertable against private interference as well as governmental action. Like the right of association, it is virtually